Hey everyone, welcome to the Sustain the Range podcast. I'm Lauren, your host, and this podcast is a personal exploration of my experiences in everything ranching. From beef operations to training horses to sustainable farming and regenerative practices, we'll cover it all. Each episode features enlightening conversations with guests who bring their unique perspectives and expertise. Whether they're seasoned ranchers or first-generation farmers, we all share a common bond and deep appreciation for the land and the livestock we raise. Tune in each week for engaging discussions, inspiring stories, and practical insights from the ranching community, and let's embark on this incredible journey together. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sustain the Range. I hope you all are having a wonderful week so far, and I'm really excited to share this one with you this week. I had the pleasure of speaking with Colton Woods, an evolving horseman, dedicated trainer, business owner, and entrepreneur who, alongside his wife Maredith, operates Colton Woods Horsemanship in Decatur, Texas. Colton shared his thoughtful and progressive approach to horsemanship, where he focuses on understanding the horse on a mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual level. We also dove deeper into topics such as building the mindset to chase your dreams, stepping outside of comfort zones, living life with no regrets, and building the life you want even when things get tough and you want to give up. Colton talked about his journey in the equine industry, starting from his work in equine rescue to becoming a sought-after horse development specialist. I really enjoyed getting to know Colton a bit and talking to him about all things horse training, mindset, business building, and more. It's packed with advice and inspiration, and I really hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. So let's dive in. Great. Well, thanks, Colton, so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time out tonight to talk with me and to be on Sustain the Range podcast. I know that our listeners are going to be super excited to get to know you a little bit more and learn from you. So welcome to Sustain the Range podcast.
No, I really appreciate you reaching out and having me on. I'm looking forward to a pretty interesting, fun conversation we got in store.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually, I started following you on Instagram, and I have been following you for quite some time and just have really found a lot of insight into the stuff you're sharing, not just about horsemanship, but about the Western industry and some other things that we'll kind of get into tonight too. But I wanted to just give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself and kind of tell us, where you're from, where you grew up, did you grow up riding horses, and things like that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, we'll get right to the chase on this deal, which is no, I didn't grow up riding horses or anything of that sort by any means. Grew up kind of, wouldn't call it necessarily inner city or anything like that, but in town. Definitely grew up in town. My parents were very entrepreneurial. So having your own business was my childhood, watching them grow their businesses. But didn't get around horses or anything like that until I was 16, and where I was volunteering at a rescue. And honestly, if you had asked me, like, what are you going to do when you grow up, kind of a thing, I would have probably guessed more along the cattle lines, because my grandfather had a little gentleman's cattle farm that I got to learn to drive the tractor, got to learn how to make hay out there, spend time with the cows, and horses were I'm the black sheep of the family. And, the more people I talk to now, there's obviously plenty of generational horsemen or generational ranchers that are out there, but there's so many new people that are like flooding into the industry that have the interest in whether it's horse related or ranching related, that I'm almost starting to think that it's more normal not to have grown up in this than it is normal to grow up in the industry at this point, because it just seems like in recent times when I've been talking to people that they're like, yeah, I didn't grow up in this either. And I'm like, many of us get told in order to be successful and, whether it's horses or ranching, it's like, you've got to grow up doing it. And I don't know. Right. I don't believe that's true. I mean, I didn't grow up in it, and it's blessed our lives. We've been able to grow our family, build a business, buy a ranch, all from being in the horse industry. And so, I didn't grow up in the industry. I grew up in North Carolina, to kind of give you the high points. Grew up in High Point, North Carolina, and, in central of the state, kind of right between the mountains and the beach, which is a pretty good little spot, great weather, those sorts of things. And then spent about a decade in Kentucky, where I met my wife, went to college, got my horse training business started there. And then we moved down to North Texas, just north of Dallas and Fort Worth about 2 years ago, mainly on a personal note to move to a place where we felt the culture was better suited to raise a family. And I got personal interest in performance cow horses. And that's the world down here. This is kind of the capital for that to be. And so we moved down here that way. Could raise a family. I could get closer into some of the great guys in this business and great women in the business. And yeah, so that I'm sure we'll uncover more as we go, but that's kind of the big picture thing at this point.
Yeah, awesome. No, thank you for sharing all that. I really appreciate it. And that is really cool to know that you didn't really grow up doing this, because a lot of my listeners, there's a lot of listeners that have grown up in this, and there's a lot of listeners that haven't. And I'm actually one of the ones who haven't. And I always love to talk to people who didn't, because very, very similar. And I've heard it, in order to be successful, you kind of have to grow up doing it, and you have to have done it your whole life. And I just think it's really cool to see somebody and to meet all of these people that have been successful who might have only gotten into it, even a few years ago. I just love hearing that. So I'd love for you to just talk a little bit more about like your horsemanship. So I really love, like I had mentioned, your Instagram and the stuff that you share about your approach to horse training. But would you just kind of walk us through a little bit about when you first started training horses? What mentors did you have, and kind of what has been your journey there?
Yeah, so I'll start with this, and I think a lot of people, whether it's horse related, ranching related, like we're very purpose driven. We have to have a why for what we're doing, and we don't just do things just because. And so, it's like we don't just fix the fence this way just because we do it this way. It's like there's a reason we do it this way, right? And so. And it's that intentionality and that awareness that makes you really good at what you do. And in times it keeps you alive. It keeps your animals alive. It keeps your business alive. And so you have to have a keen sense of purpose. And so for me, initially, as I mentioned just briefly, like I got started in horse rescue. Basically, I was 16 years old. I was a warm body that could lift heavy stuff at this rescue. I didn't know anything about horses. And so they're like, cool, a kid that can shovel heavy rock and pound T-post and move stuff for us. And that's basically what it was. But as I was there, I kind of saw these young horses, 2 to 6 years old, usually really good looking horses came in. Either they were really neglected or really abused or both. And they came in and they wouldn't get homes. And I was like, I fundamentally did not know. I was so green as grass that I started asking people at the rescue, trainers that were affiliated with the rescue. I'm like, why can't these horses find homes? And they're like, well, they're 2 to 6 years old. They live to be like 25 or more years old, and they don't know anything. So no one wants a pasture ornament that is 2 years old that's just going to eat grass and cause vet bills for the next 20 plus years. And I was like, that makes sense. And so I had just got a job at a performance facility being a groom. And so all I knew how to do was like lunge a horse and put a saddle on one. And I was like, you know what? The people at the rescue were gracious enough. We had a round pen. They're like, go knock your socks off, kid. Like, you got best of intentions with the horses. Like, go out there and see what you can get done. And so I just focused on getting good at groundwork. Like, could I help these horses be safe, not run people over, and fundamentally know some groundwork? And it was so rudimentary. It's like, it was bad. Like, even the round pen that we had was T-posts with rope. Instead, like there was no panels. It was T-post with rope tied around it, and it worked great because the horses lived in electric fence. So I'll be damned, they were not going to hit the end of that round pin,
Nice, yeah.
And so redneck as hell, but we made it work. And so it was trial and error for a long time, and then got to meet, like, very first clinic I ever went to was a Peter Campbell clinic. Peter grew up in Canada, traveled across the U.S., like one of the phenomenal horsemen that passed away a couple of years ago. I actually got that. He was my first clinic that I went to, and I actually got to go to his last clinic that he taught. And so he was the first one, and like that, he's a Vaquero style horseman. And so that style really captivated me from actually an aesthetic standpoint of like, this is, when I was a kid growing up, my parents were like, what do you want for Christmas, Colton? I'm like, a horse, cow, rope, and 25 acres. And I wanted an elf to do all my dirty work. That was the list every year, like horse cow rope, 25 acres. And it was just like, I wanted to be a cowboy. And it was just like, I never outgrew that desire. And so when I met Peter, I'm like, this is the real McCoy. Like this dude is the real deal. And they had a ranch in Wyoming, and it progressed to where I got really hooked on the Tom Dorrance, Ray Hunt, Buck Brannaman kind of style. Got a scholarship. Fast forward a little bit, got a scholarship called the Legacy of Legends, which was put together by Buck Brannaman and Carolyn Hunt, Ray Hunt's wife, to keep that horsemanship alive, to kind of help find opportunities to pass it along to the next generation. And rode with a guy named Kip Fladlin, and Kip's just world-class horseman. I was so blessed to get thrown into the pot basically at his facility. And his wife, the Missy, who he's married to at the time, was an Olympic level dressage rider. So he's this flat hat cowboy from Montana, married to a Olympic dressage rider. And so when I got there, we were riding some quarter horse ranch colts, and then we were also working with really, really high end warm bloods.
Wow.
And so it was really fascinating to see the melting pot of the world come together. And ironically, as it has it, my wife grew up, and I had met my wife at the time, but we weren't dating or anything. Like, we would start dating, I think, like 6 months later, essentially, after I went through this Legacy of Legends deal. And she grew up in the hunter jumper world, riding big fancy warm bloods. And so we started dating, and as that progressed, like, my training business grew into colt starting and problem solving primarily. And my primary clientele was warm bloods. We were right there in Lexington, Kentucky, horse capital of the world. And we had clients from all over the country that would send us really, really nice warm blooded horses to get started with a very solid foundation. And we built our training business on top of that. And it's just funny when you look back, kind of hindsight 2020, and you're looking at like landing at this place in the middle of Iowa with, this 7-acre spread with all these warm bloods. And you're like, and then 10 years later, you're looking at your business and you're like, that prepared me for this. It's just, It's really wild to see how it all comes together. But I don't want to bore people with like the nuances of my story per se, because it's just, but it's really humbling and neat, because it's as the business grew from a training business, basically my wife was like, Colton, we need to get into the branding and the marketing, and we need to get this out there, because she's done branding and marketing for some of the top horse like competitors in the English world, as well as a lot of Western folks as well. And so websites, marketing, branding is her jam. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. But my number one rule was, whatever we put on the internet has to be very authentic to what happens in person. And so that way, if someone sees it on Instagram, or if they see it on the website, or if they see it on our YouTube channel, and they come in person, that they're like, this is, as much as you can, this is what I expected. Because a lot of times people on the internet, they'll put on one front of like, look at me, I'm so fancy. And you get there and you're like, this is not at all what it was cracked up to be. Right. And so I was just really, really keen on like, let's make sure it's authentic and genuine all the way through. And that created a lot of opportunities to where we started teaching at international level events for horsemanship related stuff. And so I'm pretty sure I just went off on a total dovetail to your actual question, which was the style of horsemanship. And so very purpose driven, because it got rooted in those rescue horses of like, hey, this style of horsemanship that I utilize and that I teach to our students and to up and coming professionals is, first and foremost, you need to give this horse an education. That way it has an education it can take with it the rest of its life, no matter where it goes. So say it ends up in really bad hands. If someone that halfway knows what they're doing gets a hold of this horse, they can go, hey, this horse knows something. And it can keep a horse out of a bad situation. And so when I approach giving these horses an education, I want the horse to truly have an understanding. They're not mechanical in the sense that they're just robotic, but the horse leaves our facility really being confident and understanding of the skills we've taught them. That way, because one of the biggest things that horse trainers get told is like, well, that's good that horse does it for you, but how do I know the horse is going to do it for me? Right. And they always think, and you can train a horse to be dependent on you, but that's real selfish, in my opinion. You need to build the horse is understanding the horse's confidence, the horse's ability to do their job within themselves. And that brings them greater peace. It gives them more control over the situation. And so that's been really important for me to, one, keep horses out of bad places, but two, to also set clients up for success with their horses. Because if the horse truly understands their job, as the client takes the horse home and they're trying to get things figured out together, the horse still can just go, okay, I get, like, this human doesn't ask it the same as this other human, but I know my job, so I can fill in for them a little bit, right? Until they get on the same page. And so that part has been really important. And then I've pulled from both worlds. Like, I am really big on the ability of the reiners to ride horses on the loose rein, to be willingly guided with little to no resistance, is part of the definition of what they look for in a reining horse. But also in the dressage community, the biomechanics of, and I'm talking classical dressage, not this cram and jam dressage that gets done within competition stuff. Within the classical sense, biomechanically, it really builds a horse well. It complements how the horse naturally uses its body. So I've pulled a lot of dressage and a lot of the Western components, as well as when people say horsemanship, right? The horsemanship basically has been bastardized today. Like, people don't even know what it means anymore. And you're like, such and such horsemanship. It's like, horsemanship has got so diluted in so many different offshoots that there's not like a clear cut thing with it. And so the way I usually break it down to folks is like, hey, you know what horsemanship is? It's you understand how a horse thinks, how a horse feels, how a horse moves. Horsemanship is really understanding the horse for understanding the horse for who the horse is, and then being able to work with that, right? Understanding where they're at physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and then being able to take where they're at and take them on that journey to get them where you need them to go. And so dressage, I really like the biomechanics of that. The reiners, I like the responsibility that they give to the horse. I'm a cow horse guy. I like the cow horses because I'm busy minded that way. So we get to do a little bit of roping, do a little bit of cutting, go down the fence, do the reining, and that gives a horse a job. It gives a horse purpose to what they're doing, actual application to it. And then taking the horsemanship component of just really understanding how horses think, move, feel, and using that to our advantage in the way that we can help that horse get along better and progress better. So yeah, there's a long answer to your short question.
No, that was amazing. And I think it's so cool that you take from so many different backgrounds and pull it all into one, because first of all, that can be kind of hard to do at times, I'm sure, but also, like, you are providing not only the horse, but the client, like, such a really foundational techniques to be able to, like, pull from different areas and all bring it into one single thing that I feel like it can just go such a long way, because that horse, maybe they will go to a dressage person, or maybe they will go to work cows or something, and having all of those things being brought in, can be super helpful. And I mean, I know that would be something that I would look for in a trainer, not just have them teach like one style of, quote unquote horsemanship, but be able to have somebody that has all of these different backgrounds.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's like, yeah, it's a lot, but it's taken years.
I'm sure.
It's taken a long time to have those opportunities to work with different people. My wife and I went to Portugal right before COVID, and like got to go ride classically dressage Lusitanos and really get the feel of what those horses feel like. But then understand, hey, our horses here in the States are not built like those horses overseas. So we can't expect our horses here to do what those horses do. But we can take the principle of the matter of self-collection and how they use themselves and apply it here. And some people might think it sounds confusing, but I've really just tried to pull the pieces that benefit the horse most, and then understand, like, hey, if you want to go a specific discipline, go get a horse that's bred to do that thing. If you want a dressage horse, it'll carry itself like a dressage horse. If you want a reiner, go buy a reiner. It's bred to carry itself like a reiner. And so understanding the biomechanics and how horses move and those sorts of things, it's all just about setting that horse up to be as successful physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all the way through. The horse is the horse, of course, like you can't force it, Right. And so I've got a horse that I would love to do the cow horse on, but she's going to become a rope horse. Like I have hopes and dreams of doing the cow horse, but one, she's bred to be a rope horse, and you can just tell like that's her thing. And you can try to force it the other way, but you'll wreck her. Like you will tarnish that horse's mind, emotions, body, trying to make something happen versus realizing I just try to work with them in a way that complements them and makes them like one of my biggest fears in life is like not reaching my fullest potential. And so that's like what I'm chasing. And so when I work with my horses, I want my horses to reach their fullest potential too, at least while they're with me for the time that I have with them, whether it's a training horse, a sales horse, or a personal horse. I want them to reach that fullest potential. And if you hold true to that, and I think you could say the same thing in ranching. Like if you're raising beef cattle, like you want that horse to reach its fullest potential as a beef cow, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to give it an optimal environment, an optimal nutrition, and optimal care to optimize and help that cow reach its fullest potential. Same thing with the horses. Like we just got to set them up. And if you try to turn a Holstein into a beef cow, like you can force it, but it's not going to turn out very good, right? Like,
right.
And so that's just how I've tried to approach it. And I think it's one of the benefits of not growing up in the industry is because I didn't come in with too many preconceived notions. I mean, I came in and I did listen to people. There's a lot of people that still know more than I do. So I'm always still learning, but I've tried to be very in tune with taking the things that I think work and then leaving the ones behind that I'm pretty sure need to be left behind. Whether that's on a horse training level or even on a horse business level, it's like there's a lot of dead business models and people are getting weeded out left and right now because the economy's tight. And it's like sometimes we got to figure out how we can keep tradition, right? Whether that's in training styles or business models or whatever it is, but also evolve with the times. When we know better, we do better. And that's been a big thing for me is just reach fullest potential and just do our best.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I definitely want to ask you more about that too, in terms of, mindset and things like that. But one thing I wanted to go back to is what you mentioned, just setting the horse up for success. So in your business, when you have a client, and I've, worked with Mustangs and I've trained a few of them. And I think one of the bigger things that I came across was you can train this horse kind of like what you were talking before, but it's the owner that you've also got to train too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, I've, come across some people who said, I want this horse to do this. And just like you said, you can't turn. Sometimes that horse is not going to fit that specific discipline, or maybe they, if it's a really slow horse or they just kind of want to hang out, they're probably not going to be a great barrel horse, So what are some of the things that you do to kind of manage that? Because I do think that's a big challenge that horse trainers in general can face too, right? So what are some things that you do to balance that out a bit with your clients?
Yeah. So the people part, like the horse part's easy, right? Like it's in comparison to handling people. But ultimately we're in the people business.
Yeah.
And so we have to understand how to work with these folks. So when I'm working with those clients that may not be matched up with the right horse, a big thing that I try to evaluate is where is that person at, right? Are they really receptive to what I'm thinking? Like I might know sure damn well that this is a bad matchup, right? But there's like the Jordan Peterson principle. If you've heard of Jordan Peterson, it's like, don't cast pearls before swine, right? Which is don't put good stuff in front of people that won't appreciate it, for lack of better terms, right? And so if I have a client that I know sure damn well they're absolutely not going to sell that horse. Like there's nothing that I can convince them of to sell it. I'm probably not going to just cause a total kerfuffle and be like, this is a horrible idea. When I will do it is if I think they're going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. Like if safety comes into an equation, if I'm like, you know what, this horse and you are going to end up in a wreck and I won't sleep at night because I know at some point I'm going to get a phone call that you're getting airlifted out of the woods, then I will have a conversation, right? If I'm that concerned about it. Because one of my greatest goals is to go to bed and sleep good at night, knowing I gave everything my best. And if I have a guilty conscience. And so I feel like you have a fiduciary duty. If you know it's that bad, you need to say something. But if it's like, man, they'd really like to go do this, this horse really isn't meant to do it, it's not going to go as smoothly as it could. Life's too short. You could have a better horse, but they're not going to sell Fluffy, then I'm probably not going to really bring it up. Now, if the client is somewhat receptive, I'm like, okay, there's a chance that if I bring this up, they're going to listen to me. At least we can have the conversation. And I always let those clients know, like, hey, I just want to, you've hired me as a professional to be here to help you and your horse get where you want to go. So this is where we're currently at. And it's like, this is where your horse is at in training. This is where you want to go. And usually you're at a crossroads. Like usually you're at kind of like a tough spot where things aren't necessarily going smoothly. Like if you have this conversation when things are going smooth, like it's not going to sink in. But if things are getting a little rocky and you can say, hey, listen, like this is where we're at. This is where you want to go. This is what it's going to take to get there. And it might be more time of that horse being in training. It might be like, hey, this horse could do this, but this horse is real reactive. Like this horse sees everything. So you can go trail riding, but it's going to be like riding a hunting dog. And it's always going to be on a swivel, looking at every little thing that blows in the wind. And it's like, if you're comfortable with that, then that's what you've got. If you don't want that, then maybe you should consider doing something else. And the real thing though is I think a lot of times people really can piss their clients off when they try to bring up something with good intentions, but they bring it up at the wrong time, or they bring it up to a client that they're not going to listen. They just absolutely aren't going to listen. And so I really try to evaluate the fact of, is that client even open to that conversation? And if not, I'm not going to cause an issue of it. I'm just going to do my job to get that horse as prepared as possible. But I will then say, hey, listen, I know Fluffy's with you the rest of your life. So here's the things you need to know, because this is the type of horse this is. This is its tendencies. This is its strengths. This is its weaknesses. These are the things that you have to do to keep this horse on track. And I get asked a lot of times, like, have horses failed out of your program? And because I'm not like in a full performance program where our performance program is building, and there will be horses that don't make the cut in that because they're just not going to be talented enough. That doesn't mean they're bad horses. They just won't be competitive in that particular thing. But within colt starting and problem solving, for us, we never had horses fail out per se. We might have been limited on having 90 days to get a job done and going, hey, we got it this far. We really would have liked to get it a little bit further, but maybe we just needed more time to get it there. And so fundamentally, for folks that face those situations, you just look at the people. Are they going to listen? If they're going to listen, make sure you pick the right time to have that conversation, and then let them know why you're not telling them because you want to tell them that. Like I always tell them, like, I don't want to have this conversation with you. This is not fun for me, but this is why you hired me. You hired me as a professional with my experience and my outlook to do what's right for you and your horse. And so I'm willing to have the tough conversation with you. And this is what I see. This is what I see your strengths are. This is what I see your horse's strengths are. This is where I see there's a mismatch. This is why. And guess what? There's a lot of really nice horses out there, and life's too damn short. So I was like, I'm not going to tell you to sell your horse. That's not a really good thing. You're not going to be like, I can tell my clients, like, you're not going to be like me if I tell you to sell your horse. I'm just laying this out there. And if you decide that you should sell this horse and find a better one, I will help you however I can. But this is your decision. And sometimes when you like just give it to them and leave it in their court, they've got control over it. You're not sitting there going, because every horse person's type A as hell. So they don't want to be told what. And so they don't be like, you need to sell your horse. It's like, good luck with that one. like that's going to go over real well.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I've approached it. And it's more about having a framework, not having a script. It's more about understanding like how to guide through those conversations and how to read people and understand where they're coming from versus, because if you have a script and your client goes off script, you're screwed.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the biggest problem that people come to you with when somebody brings you a horse? They're saying, I have this problem. What's kind of the most common one that you get?
Most common one. Most people are thinking like, is it horses bucking people off? Is it horses flipping over? Is it horses running off? All of the horses usually, like, not to say all that, I can't make that big of a generality, but the vast majority of the horses that come to us, they're very unstable. And so that's the biggest issue is they might, and all the horses express it a little differently. Some are running off, right? Some are bucking, some are running people over, or doing some pretty gnarly stuff, right? Rearing up. I've had a couple of horses that come in that have been flipped over. And I used to tell people, and we backed off of this when we were in Kentucky, like our full business was basically problem horses and colt starting. It was majority problem horses. And people were like, what do you do for a living? And most people that ask me that question are not horse people. And I was like, I run an equine psychotherapy center. And that's basically what it was. Cause everything, it was like basically a patient in the barn. And when we moved to Texas, I really stepped away from that. And I've focused more on teaching people how to handle those horses and teaching other professionals how to work with those horses, because I can only work so many horses a day. But if I can help more professionals have the skills to go work with those horses, then we can cover way more ground in the industry. Into my family's grown. My daughter's almost 2. I got another kid on the way, and I want my barn to be enjoyable. In that barn, you really had to be on your P's and Q's. Like, because those horses some of them were dangerous to be around for a period of time until we had enough of a handle on them. And so the biggest issue was that horses were unstable mentally and emotionally, and they all kind of expressed it differently. Some of them were very spoiled, and I still get it. I mean, there's so many spoiled horses, and it's a pet peeve of mine. And people are like, I spoil my horses. I was like, that's a horrible thing to do, by the way. Like, and again, you don't make friends when you tell people that some people take pride in spoiling their horses because they use spoiled and taking care of like it's the same word. But I'm very black and white in this, and it's like, to spoil a horse, to spoil anything is to harm the character of. So when people are like, I'm spoiling my kids, I'm like, great. So you're ruining the character for your kid to be a horrible adult.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's a very bad thing to do. It's very selfish because it makes you feel good, but now you're setting up your kid for a very, very difficult future. And a lot of the horses get the same thing where they spoil the horses. I've got one in now that is just a heathen to deal with. And because it's so spoiled, it's been spoiled since the time it was a foal. Mm-hmm. And that makes that horse's life a lot more difficult when then at some point someone says it's time to grow up and get a big boy job. And you're dealing with a 1,000, 1,200 pound thing full of emotion and thoughts and feelings. And, and so that part of it, like when people come here, the attention to detail that we run on a mental level with these horses is very kind of unnormal for some people. Some people, this is normal. Some people, for a lot of people, the attention to detail, they come in, they're like, how do you do this every day? It's like, because it's how we do what we do. Like, we're always paying attention to where that horse's mind is at. And so, and it's one of those things that you can't force, because horses need to be physically fit, emotionally fit, and mentally fit. And so when we balance out their training sessions, it's always evaluating, well, where is the emotional weakness? What are the things that causes them to escalate in emotion and become reactionary? Okay, cool. That's what we need. We need to work on those things, but we also have to work on their physical fitness. And then we have to work on their mental fitness. What is their understanding? How much pressure can they take? Because pressure, I always tell folks, like, diamonds aren't formed in mud puddles, right? Like, diamonds get formed under pressure. And you can't do too much pressure, but you can't do too little pressure. And you have to find that balance in there of developing a very well-rounded horse around there. And so most of the horses we come in, they don't know how to regulate their own emotions. They can't bring their energy up and bring their energy down without getting emotional. And that's really important skill, whether you're going to rope calves in the branding trap, or you're going to go over a jumper course, or you're going to go through a reining pattern. Like, there's times where things get quick and they need to be on spot and they can't get emotional. There's times where they need to be able to stand around, cock a leg, and get tied to the fence and just hang out. They got to know when to work. They got to know when to rest. And so issue-wise, it's more mental than anything. And I heard this a while ago, and it really stuck with me. And it's that humans are the only thing that can make a horse not act like a horse.
And I haven't heard that one before. I like it.
Yeah, and I heard that in a different context. I mean, I heard that in the context of like people are the only thing that can make animals in general not act like animals do. But
Uh-huh.
then you look at that from the horse context, and it's like if I put a horse in a one horse and it's surrounded by coyotes, it's going to act like a horse. And when the
Hmm.
coyotes go away, if it's still alive, it's going to act like a horse again. And you can put these horses in desert conditions, in snowy conditions. You can put them with all sorts of different types of wildlife. They'll always act like a horse should act. Yet when the people are involved, we start to get unnatural patterns, unnatural behaviors, unnatural emotions with horses because we're in the way, like the management style or the type of interactions. And people are interacting with horses like they're people,
Yeah.
and they're not interacting with horses like they're horses because they don't understand how the horse thinks and how the horse is motivated and demotivated and those types of things. And it gets them unbalanced. It gets them to where they do these weird, unnatural reactions and responses. And that's usually like what we end up dealing with, is that it gets so far gone that it's unmanageable and they're dangerous.
Yeah.
And then we have to help these horses basically find peace again in their life. But then it's not like, okay, we're gonna have a freaking yoga retreat with the horses. It's like, no, they got to go to work, because like a lot of people that've ever been to therapy, they think they go to therapy thinking they have one issue, and they get there and they're like, oh shit, I got 45 different things wrong with me that I didn't realize that were wrong. And it's kind of what happens with these horses, that they come in for a particular issue, like the horse is running off, and you can just look at the horse and go, that thing's a crackpot. Like, okay, it is so mentally unstable. And then you have to unravel it. And it can take time, and it can be really tough for the horses. And so I tell clients, like, I like when they come into training, we get the job done. We set their lifestyle up at our facility. Like the last 2 to 3 weeks, we try to make sure they're living a lifestyle pattern that they'll live when they go home. So if they live majority outside, they'll live the majority outside. If they're going to live 23 hours in a stall, they'll live 23 hours in a stall. Like, we'll set that up. And by the time I get to that point, I kind of know if the horse is going to be successful in that or not. But we do it just to make that transition easier when they go home. So that way there's no excuses on the client's end, but also tell the clients, like, hey, the management that we have for these horses is what breeds success for these horses. And you need to make sure that you're managing that horse in a way that can facilitate the progress. Because if a criminal is doing bad stuff in the hood and they go to prison and they get reformed and they get dropped right back in the same neighborhood again, the likelihood of them doing the same behaviors is very, very high. And it's no different with some of these horses, is that you can't just send them to the trainer, get it fixed, and then bring them right back into the exact same, management practices and handling habits and expect it to go any differently.
Right.
And if they do that, you just hope and pray it lasts for 60 days or so, because the horse will fall to the level of the human anytime. And so it's a tricky thing. Like when I teach clinics, I tell folks, like, if I have to have a tough conversation with the horse, I tell them, like, I will help get the horse through this hurdle that you guys are struggling with. I was like, but then you have to uphold it from here. You have to do your deal to not let this go back. Because if I watch you in the next day, 2, 3 days, and you let that horse go back to the way it was after we've reestablished boundaries, I was like, I'm not doing that again, because it's not fair to the horse for that to happen. And it doesn't mean it's super physical. It just might be that the horse really has to work through their emotions, and they may not get out of a walk, and they might be in a dead sweat, breathing hard, because they're just going through this internal experience. And I'm pretty black and white with folks, and that is like, I'm more than willing to help you and your horse, but then you have to do your job as the human, because it's your responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you just said, it is our responsibility as a horse owner. If you're going to buy that horse, if you're going to bring that horse home, you do have a responsibility to provide that horse with the best that they can be. And that comes on us, and not just like, providing a good home for it, but emotionally, like you just said, and having to kind of take a hard look at ourselves sometimes, not defaulting back to old habits, kind of getting a little uncomfortable, and saying,
Yeah.
okay, like, what do I need to change here? And, as humans, change, sometimes we don't like it, but we got to do it. So, um,
That's it.
yeah, so you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'd love to talk a little bit about mindset stuff. So you kind of talked a little bit about the horses, setting them up physically, mentally, emotionally for success. And a lot of stuff that you share, I really love, just in terms of like self-development and mindset and everything. So have you always kind of had this strong mindset, in terms of success and following your dreams and not giving up and stuff like that? Or has it been something that you've built over the years?
I think the quick answer to that is it's a muscle, right? I think it's a muscle that you have to build. But then it comes down to choices, and you got to make choices. And you got to make decisions. So I've always been pretty intrinsically like, it's been a natural mindset for me that I hold the keys to my future. There's nothing I hate more than a victim mindset. Like, life's tough, wear a helmet, right? Like, if you want to go get it, go work for it. Everyone's like, work hard. It's like, work hard and work smart. How about let's do both?
Yeah.
Like, everyone, like, hard work, working hard at the wrong thing is not any good either, right? So we got to work hard and we got to work smart. But the natural, I think that fundamentally, my wife reminds me sometimes that I'm not normal, and some days I feel like I want to be normal, and then I realize today I look out in today's world and I'm like, nah, I don't want to be normal today.
Yeah.
Like,
Agreed.
not today. I'm good with being abnormal. And so that concept of just, if I want to go a different route in life, or if I want to do something in life, go create a way, go find a way to go do it. Where there's a will, there's a way. And so that part has been natural. But then as far as the grittiness to get through things and to understand that, yeah, life's tough and all of that, I think it's twofold. Or maybe three at this point, but like, one is, for me, what's the alternative? Everyone's like, well, they might look at what they want to get, whatever your goal is. And some people say they'll look at that goal and they'll have a choice to choose to go after it, to not go after it. And many people will look at it and go, well, if I do go after it, I might lose the money. It may not work out. People will judge me. I might fail. And they look at what could go wrong if they do go chase whatever the dream is. And no shit, things can go wrong. Like,
They
of
probably
course
will.
it just about guaranteed something will not go right. But the bigger thing to me has been, I don't want to die on my deathbed with regret. So when I go do things like running my own business, for example, there was never a choice in that. When I realized the passion and the purpose I had within the horse industry, that wasn't a choice. That was purpose. That was what I was going to go do. And I am very much all in on things. And so when I say I'm going to go do something, there is no choice. That is what's going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to get there. And a lot of people think, well, then he has a plan to get there. It's like, the hell with that. I just know where I'm headed. I just know the direction. I don't know how I'm going to get there. And we have a software business for horse people. I had no intentions and no desire in my earthly body for that to be an entrepreneurship journey that I was on, right? But I know the direction of travel, which is to help as many horses and people as possible. I was sitting on the back of a horse years ago, and I was like trying to figure out, like, what is this mission? What encapsulates, what the hell am I doing with my life right now? And it's, for me, on a faith-based side, it was one of those moments where the clarity comes in and you're like, that's it. And for us, it was educating horses and people with a lifetime in mind. And that is like what we try to do every single day in every facet of our business. It's like the core philosophy behind everything that we do. And that's purpose. And there was no choice but to go do that. And so when it comes into the tough mindset thing, one, I don't really give myself choices. I say, this is the path that we're going. burn the freaking boats. And because if you give yourself a plan B, or if you tell yourself, oh, well, maybe I could try this or whatever, you're never going to go all in. You're never going to get the result that you want. And you're just going to be dipping your toes into the water without actually jumping in the pool. And you're going to drag it on for a decade. And then you're going to be one of those people that I wish I would have when I was younger. And just go on Facebook, go on Instagram, and watch it. How many people have lived their life and played it safe when you don't really have that much to lose, because we're all going to die anyway. Yeah. Like, and so it's one of those things to me, like, regret's pretty heavy, and I don't want that weight. I would rather lose money, lose friends, and be wrong, be wrong plenty of times, and learn and go through the journey of life, which is really what I think it's about. It's not like you're chasing an end destination, but you're also trying to build a life that you love to live. And I really try to make sure that I reach that fullest potential that I have. So like the things that I'm chasing is like, don't die with regret, reach your fullest potential. And so when I come across these decisions of like, should I do this thing? I'm like, well, is that going to help me? If I don't do it, will I regret it? And if I don't do it, will it hold me back from potentially reaching my fullest potential, to where when you die, and if for those of us that do believe, like, you get to the pearly gates and there's this, like, I play out this scene in my head that I got from a guy named Ed Milet, which is you get there and he introduces you to the person, to the man or the woman that he designed you to be.
Yeah.
This is who you could have been. Right. And I get chills thinking about that, because if and when if God were to say, here's the man that that I created you to be, I want to recognize that person. I want to be as close as I possibly can to that. I don't want to look at that person be a stranger.
Yeah.
And so that for me is something that I'm always trying to live up to, because if I live it to my fullest potential, I'm serving my family. I'm serving my business. I'm serving the people that work for us. I'm serving the horses. I'm serving everyone around us to the fullest extent. And it's like when I was doing a TikTok live earlier and then doing this evening, and it's like, I don't hold back. Why would you hold back? Like, why? Because if you hold back and then you go to bed and you're like, well, I could have given them more, and you knew that in the middle of it, then you're not reaching your fullest potential. And so to me, it's just how you do what you do. And, like, we all have childhood stuff that is tough, that molds you into who you are, and you can let it be an excuse, or you can let it be a catalyst moving forward. Right. And, certainly, like, my brother and I had our stroke of stuff that we had to work through as kids, and it just is what it is. It's just life. It's not a death sentence. It's not a life sentence. It's just part of the things you get to choose what you do with it. Right. And yeah, so I really look at folks and I just say, hey, like, what's the choice? Like, how do you have another choice? If you know that that's what you're supposed to be doing, why are you giving yourself another choice? And it's usually because they're like, well, that it feels safer. It feels more comfortable. And it's like, that's not why. That's not living. Yeah. Like, yeah, you shouldn't be stressed out all the time, but it's growth. It's change, as you were mentioning a few minutes ago. Like, change is uncomfortable. Hell yeah, it is. It's hard, but so is staying in the same place you're at right now.
Right.
Looking back 10 years from now going, damn, I wish I would have done something, And so that's just the way I see it. Like, it's just the way I kind of operate, and we try to go get it and get after it hard every day. But I was telling my dad the other day, because my brother was at the beach over the 4th of July vacation, like weekend, extended weekend. My dad and my parents were out doing a barbecue thing. And they're like, what'd you do? And we got up and we rode horses first thing 4th of July morning. And then we went out and we did a barbecue with my cousin. And then we rode horses the next day. And they're like, you're not doing anything for the extended weekend? I'm like, I told my dad, I was like, listen, we're trying to create a life we don't want to escape from. I was like, that's what we're doing. I was like, there's times where I don't leave the ranch for 3 weeks, and I haven't walked out the gates other than to get the mail, and it's like, I don't feel like I'm missing anything. And because we're trying to build a life that we love to live. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But so many people are living for the weekend still. And it's like, come on, man, like there's more to it than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, gosh, thank you for sharing all that. I'm like, I just love everything that you're saying. And, you know, I also love Ed Milet. And I heard him say that like about a year ago. And even when you said it, it gave me chills because from the moment that I heard him say that, it's like I can't not think of that now.
Mm-mm.
You know, like it's something that you just can't unhear. And it is so true. And, you know, staying in the same place that you are in the choices that we make, it's like, you know, this whole idea of are we choosing pain or are we choosing suffering? And pain and suffering are two different things. And I do think that when you do decide to not grow and change, you are staying in that same place that is causing suffering. And it's almost like you are choosing that, you know? And I love what you said about like making the decision, because I think, especially now, like even just in our society, like you're talking about. And I've also heard this too, like we're one of the softest societies to ever live, right? And I kind of think that that's partly true. And it is true. I mean, we're one of the most privileged societies in history ever, right? I forget exactly like the quote that, but it was, and I actually think it was on Ed Milet podcast, but he said something like, a weak society creates, or like an easy generation creates weak men, a hard generation creates strong men, like something like that.
Like hard times create hard men.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, hard times create hard men, and then it's like easy times create, or like weak. Yeah, it's just basically like tough times create hard men. You know, easy times create weak men. Weak men create hard times.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that.
And it's, you know, you just mentioned a minute ago, just like that we're kind of like the softest. It's like the softest generation, and I think you have to look at it two ways. Me personally, in this way, which is, it is, people are very soft, they're very weak, and it makes it that much easier to get ahead right now. Like if you can just be relentlessly consistent and good at what you do, you can beat the freaking pants off of people. And I say that from like an entrepreneurship standpoint of like, go build, go get what's yours that's meant for you. Like God wants you to have abundance. And so go get it. It's never been easier to get. We have free social media. You know, to have a podcast, you pay a monthly subscription, like $20 a month or $50 a month to put the information out there. But YouTube's free, Facebook's free, Instagram's free, TikTok's free. Like your media channels are completely free to distribute it across the deal. But the other problem is that within a very weak society of people becomes very dangerous people, right? Like weak people are the most dangerous people. Like a weak man is a dangerous man because they operate emotionally, and you can see that in society, right? These people that are emotionally off the handle, they do not, like we talk about horses not having control of their mental state and their emotional state, ... comes from people, right? Like, and that's what we're facing. And it's like, man, I think from a family standpoint, from just being really, really understanding is like, okay, there's massive opportunity when there's weakness. When there's weakness, there's massive opportunity, and people get hard. Like, you know, we got November coming up. Some of us got our fingers crossed that some things change here in the States with this election coming up, because it's making hard times. It's outside of our control. And we have to understand, hey, that during this tough time, these weak people will get desperate and do some crazy things.
Yeah.
And you have to be aware of that and be prepared. And this sounds like some people are like, Colton, you're an asshole, but that's fine. Because my wife was like, hey, I want to take our daughter to the park. And it was over 4th of July weekend. And the town that has a really cool park is very liberal. And I was like, I've got to work. It's 4th of July weekend. We're in Texas. There's a bunch of people that are here that are not supposed to be here. And I was like, you're not going to the park with her by yourself. I was like, I promise we'll go. I'll go with you. I was like, but you're pretty much 8 months pregnant with a 2-year-old at a park. I was like, today's world, I don't like that math equation.
Yeah.
Because it's just too much risk. And people are like, you're a pessimist. You're like, you need to like live a life. You can't live in fear. I'm like, I don't live in fear. I'll just make sure that I have as much control of the situation as possible, because it's weak times and people are doing some really crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's be prepared. Don't be stupid, in my opinion, in this. Be prepared, but then also realize within that you have massive opportunity. Like we have both. Like you have to be careful, but you have to be ambitious, like because it's sitting right there in front of us in weak times. And so it's such a conundrum, right? Because everything is like the yin and the yang, I think. And when it's really good times, it's like, man, there's massive opportunity, but you have to be careful too in good times. You can't get overzealous. And then in really hard times, there's massive opportunity, but you got to be careful. And I don't know, that's just kind of the way I see that thing. And we can get a little.
Yeah. No, that's
personal.
great. And I mean, I agree with you with the whole park thing. I mean, you're just being a good dad and a good husband right there. And I mean, I even catch myself sometimes, I don't even want to go to like big events anymore where I know there's going to be a lot of people and things like that, because just like you said, not like I'm living in fear, but crazy things are going on in the world. And you just got to be smart about it. And
it's like our parents used to probably tell us. I mean, my parents told me, they're like, nothing good happens after 9 o'clock when it gets dark.
Yeah, same. My mom said 8.
And it's like, yeah, and it's like as a kid, like when they say that kind of stuff, you're like, oh, that's so stupid.
Right.
And now I'm like, you know what? You're dang right. Like there is nothing good happening in the world like after 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night when it gets dark outside. Like, no, it's because it's risk and reward. Is it really worth it?
Right.
No, probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So I wanted to ask you about Horse Business Manager. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you want to just kind of tell us about that program, tell us what it's about, and then where people could find it if they're interested.
You bet. Yeah. So it's getting a lot more traction now. It's been out for a while. It's tried and true. Like horse business. So what it is it's a business for equine based service businesses, horse businesses that offer services, farriers, boarding barns, lesson programs, trainers, chiropractors, body workers, veterinarians, therapeutic programs, that offer services. That's who it's designed for. And it's an all-in-one business management platform. Okay. There's a lot of apps that offer opportunities to manage your horses in your barn and your feeding program. Can you do that within the platform? Yes, but that's not what it's designed to do. It is a business management platform to where you can set up reoccurring invoices or reoccurring billing. You can get paid on time each month. You can do your social media marketing. You can do your email marketing. You can run all of your calendars. So you can manage your team calendars. If you have assistant trainers or someone else working for you, you can run their calendar. You can run a lesson calendar to where people can go on your website, book their lesson, pay right then if you want them to. Set up just like when we all go to the doctor, right? We have our appointment for the doctor and they're like 24 hours before they text you and like, hey, Lauren, don't forget, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:30. And you get that text message the night before. It has those types of automations in it. And it's set up to where it can save you a ton of time in your business. And so it's an all-in-one business management platform. It has an app, so you can run it from your phone. You can also run it from a computer, host your website. And so the idea is, and what it does is it allows you to get rid of all these extra subscriptions and all these extra, because many of us have to have like 4 or 5 different platforms to get it all hooked together to run our businesses. And that's the position we were in, where we had websites on 2 different platforms because those things offered different types of opportunities to have on our website. And then you have this plugin and you have this software and you have this other thing, this email subscription and this thing. And we built this for my business. Like we built this for my horse training business and my clinics and our video library type thing. And over the years, I've been coaching other horse business owners in developing their business because they see what we've been doing in ours and they're like, hey, can you help me? And so we're coaching them, and then ultimately they came to us because we taught them how to build these systems in their websites and in their processes with their business. And then they finally came to us and they're like, hey, how can we just use what you use? Because it's a hell of a lot of work to go build this on your own. And it took us years to figure it out. And so then my wife took it upon herself to go, let's figure out how we take our system and get it to where other people can use it, other people within the horse industry. And so the Horse Business Manager itself has all the systems built in it already. And so when people start using it and you get in there, there's all sorts of workflows that are automations, which basically means it does the tedious work for you. And so the things that you have to do over and over and over, like messaging people the same 20 questions when they ask you about your services, about well, when you're available, how much do you charge? Like, what do you feed now? Da 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 da. Like, you can automate all of that in a very personal way, because so many people get anxious. They're like, I don't want it to sound like a robot. It's like, you don't have to worry about that. It'll sound just like you, because it's very personal. The whole platform customizable, and it's a game changer, right? Like, I don't try to sell people on it. I just say, listen, it can make your life easier, and if it all it has to do is save you 6 hours, and it's paid for itself, and it will save you a lot more than 6 hours, right? A lot more than 6 hours every single month, and so we've put that together. And so we offer folks to be able to do a free demo. If they want to see how it works, they can schedule a demo, and we'll hop on a call with them. And the thing is that when they're like, I'm not techie, it's like, cool, I can run it. I'm a freaking horse trainer. I'm not tech oriented at all. The whole reason it came together is because I was like, Meredith, can it do this? And she's like, yes, give me a week. And it does it. I'm like, yes, it does the thing. Right. And so I'm very much as much of a user of it as anybody else. We use it all the time, and every single day in our business, to run our training program, to run our different businesses. And when people have tech questions, they talk with my wife or I or somebody on our team, and we're all horse people. So there's no like outsource to the Philippines or India or whatever. It's like, you talk with horse people that get your business. And so when you're trying to set something in your business, we know why you need it and how you need it. That way it gets done properly. And so our whole mission with that deal is, I'd love for a bunch of people on here to jump on there and go try it. Just go check it out. Like, we have 100% money back guarantee on it, because I don't want you using it. I don't want you paying for it and using it if you don't like it. It's like, you don't like it, just email me. I'll give you your money back. Like, we just want you to actually make a difference in your business. And fortunately, those that have jumped on there, I don't know that we've had anybody at this point that after a month, they're like, no, we want our money back. Like, everybody sticks, because it gets the job done.
Yeah. And it sounds like a huge time saver too. And you understand their problems, right? So you firsthand know why they're calling, what they need help with, and you kind of understand where they're coming from. Your wife sounds wonderful. She sounds like an absolute wizard with this kind of stuff.
Oh,
so
she is.
that's amazing. But yeah, I'll definitely put all of that in the show notes. And is it a monthly subscription? Is that how it works?
Yeah, there's a monthly option, or you can pay annual. If you pay annual, you'd save 20% or so. And so our goal is make it as affordable as possible for folks. And, and we're here to help. We want you guys to be successful in your horse businesses, because we know, like, it affects every part of our life. Like, if our business is operating well, and we can feel less stress, and we can feel less frustrated on the day-to-day of trying to keep things going, like, we're able to be better for our horses. Like, we can be more mentally present. We can be in a better headspace for our horses, for our kids, for our spouses, for our family. And like, when your business runs better, not just is like your mental, emotional health better, but like your financial health can be better, and you can give back. Like, you can take better care of your horses. You can take better care of your clients and your students. And as business owners, we all understand the better our business does, the more we can reinvest in our business, and that benefits everyone around us. And that's ultimately like what took us down this path with you guys. I was like, I don't want to have a software business. Like, I want to go train horses. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to be riding my horses. But at the end of the day, knowing, hey, when people get on this platform and they get it working for them, the quality of life that you can live can be better, because you're using something that makes your life easier. And so many people are stuck. They're running the business like it's 1988. And it's like, guys, it's 2024. There's easier ways to do this. And so, you have to be willing to make that change, as you mentioned, right? And it's uncomfortable to go and make this change and use technology sometimes, when all of us want to like live in a cabin in a remote village, often not have to deal with technology. But that's just not the world we live in right now. And it's the choice that we all have to make, right? You can choose to continue doing it the way you're doing it and feeling the way you're feeling, whether it's stressed and frustrated and burnt out or out of time, or make the uncomfortable change to learn something new. And then within a month from now, in a week from now, start feeling better and actually have something that works for you. And I can't you can't express to people how much of a relief it can make. You just have to experience it. And that's what we tell folks, like, just try it. Like, just give us 30 days to help you with it. And if it didn't help, we'll give you your money back. But if it did help, now you feel better, and now you've got something that works for you. And it's that's to us is what it's really about. It's like, we'd love, from a business standpoint, we'd love to have people, more users on the platform, but we really want more people to have their life back, because we got into this business because of the lifestyle that we love, not just to run a business. Like, the business stuff to a lot of us was the thing that we just inadvertently learned we had to do because we decided to not have a 9-to-5 job. Right. And so that stuff needs to be systematized. That stuff needs to be taken care of, to where it's not so dreadful. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you. That's amazing. And I'll make sure to add all of that into the show notes so that people can find it. Definitely just, sign up for the free trial. So thank you so much, Colton. I just have a couple more last minute questions for you. This has been a great conversation so far, and I really appreciate your time. I know it's late, and you had bedtime not too long ago with the little one, so I will make sure to let you go soon. But for anybody that is interested in getting into this industry, whether it's maybe they are interested in horses, saying, oh, I really want to be a horse trainer, or maybe just like in the Western industry, equine industry in general, what would your kind of best advice to them be to start out?
Best advice for somebody kind of getting into it, I'd say, is go find someone that is doing what you want to go do, whether that's farming, ranching, creating a market, like if it's influencer type stuff, like whatever it is, if it's horse training, if it's being a farrier, go find someone that is being successful doing that thing, but also someone that has the same morals, character that you strive to have too, right? It's not just what their business looks like, but someone that also you look up to as a person. And here's the thing, like, you sometimes have to make a judgment call based on what you can see. And then you get there and you're like, this isn't quite what it's cracked up to be. Go find somebody else. But sometimes you don't know until you get closer to the sun, essentially. And I think that one of the best things you do is that mentors and coaches are a cheat code. They are a fast pass to being successful sooner, because they can teach you in the things to get to where they are, to get there sooner. That's what good coaches and good mentors should help you get the result that they got quicker. Like that's how it should work. Like, if it took them 10 years to get something and they can help you get there in 7 years, then you win, because they saved you 3 years of your life that they will never get back, and that you can use to continue moving forward. And you can shrink that down. And if it took them a year and it takes you 3 months, because they helped you get there, that's a huge win. But I think finding someone that's doing what you want to do, or what you think you want to go do, and you might have an idea, but you're not really sure, go try something. Like, just go get around somebody, stick with it for 6 months, and go, okay, I hated that. That was horrible. And it's like, cool. One of the best things to learn in the beginning is what you don't like doing, but stick with it, start with it, stick with it. Try to end any of those, whether you liked it or you didn't like it. Try to do everything you can to end those experiences on really positive notes. Your network is your net worth. And so the better that you can build your network, the higher net worth is, the more people that you can tap into later to then build your career. And it's because it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And go get around that person and realize you use that mentor so that you can get better results, right? That mentor helps you get higher quality results within this, because within the ag space, within the horse industry, it's what you can get done. People don't give a shit about your piece of paper career, like a diploma thing that you went to college for. Because I got one of those too. I gave it to my mom for Mother's Day, and I was like, "Here, Mom, I'm going to do my life now." And it's just one of those things. Like, it doesn't mean much, because people in this industry want to know, what are your actually skills? What can you actually do? And you got to go develop skills. Like, if you're somebody that has the gift of the gab, you better be able to back it up, right? Like, good. You can talk to people. Okay. Now what can you do? And be able to do that as well. So go find mentors, go develop the skills, and first you learn, then you earn, right? Like, do not chase fast cash. Like, that is one thing that I think is really important, is that the money is there, the money will be there, it will come, but really focus on that education first. Because if you're somebody that's like, I'm going to go start my own business, and you'll never feel ready. Somebody asked me that on that TikTok live I did earlier. Like, how do you know when you're ready to start your own business? I was like, I think that's like having kids. I don't think you ever feel really ready, but you just know that you got to do it. And now's the time that this needs to happen. And so go learn. And if I've talked with some students of mine that they start to get just enough skills, and they see the money they could be making, and they go chase the money. And if they would just stick with the learning portion for like 2 more years, they would be multipliers ahead. But it's so tempting sometimes, especially when you get close and you start to see in a business, as we call it, the woman in the red dress, right? You get so close and you start to see that shiny object. And you're like, man, if you can just have the discipline to stick with that mentor, to stick with a program where you can keep learning for a little bit longer, that compound interest of learning will take you far ahead of everyone else. But so many people go grab the fast cash, and they're like, I'm just going to cash in now. And then you lose the leverage. It's kind of like taking your money out of the bank too early.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. It's kind of like that whole experiment they did with the kids. I think when it was like, will you take this ice cream now? Or if you wait like another 20 minutes or so, you can have like 3 ice creams later or something. Yeah. So that kind of mentality for sure. But thank you for sharing all that. That's great advice. So one more last question that I like to ask, and I was asked this before, and it could be like legitimate anything. So what do you know for sure?
There's a lot of zinger questions on the end of podcasts, and that is one of the better ones that I've been asked. That's awesome. I like that question. What do I know for sure?
I didn't come up with it. I can't take credit for it. Somebody asked me that.
I think in a very literal sense that I don't know that I can say I know anything for sure. I'm going to give you an answer that's a little more concrete, but like something like that, like to say for sure, like, and like, I believe in God, I'm a Christian, and it's like, there's having faith, like faith is believing in something you can't see, right? Like you cannot touch it, feel it, like you can't grasp it, but it's faith. And there's also the human element that goes, we could be wrong.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
There's a lot of religions out there, right? Someone might be right, or we all could be wrong. And so, to say like, oh, well, I know for sure is my faith, is I have faith in that. I'm not ignorant to the fact that I could be wrong. God is real. I would rather hedge my bet that, hey, that I'm going to put my faith in that department. Not worried whether I'm right or wrong, because I'm better off to have the faith than not have faith in that way. But I think to say I know for sure, I don't know, like maybe it's just where I'm at in that spiritual journey, where I feel a little ignorant saying that, because it's not evidence, and I'm very black and white. I'm very practical. And I've realized that the last 2.5 years have been like very trying for me on just a personal development level. Because when you have horsemanship as part of your life and you have entrepreneurship, you've just like accepted 2 personal growth paths at the same time. And it's been really trying. And I think that the thing that I wanted to say, to your question, was that it's going to be okay. But even then, you look at some people's lives and you go, that's a rough go. Like, is it really going to be okay? And I was like, because that's really what I want to say. But You know, the thing that here's what I can say. This I can say for sure. And it's taken me, I had to think about this because I don't like throwing things out there. Like, this is a very good question. And the thing I can say for sure is I won't quit. I won't quit. Like, no matter what happens, no matter what changes, no matter how hard it gets, or whether it doesn't matter whether I get physically hurt to such a degree, or financially it gets really tough, or spiritually it gets really tough, or whatever it is. Like, that is one thing that I have control over. I know for sure that to the bitter end, I just won't quit until it's over. And that's, to me, that goes back to the part of the conversation we had earlier, that there's no choice. Like, you can have a choice to quit, but there's a consequence to quitting. And to me, for sure, not quitting.
Yeah. Awesome. That is a great answer. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Great. So, Colton, where can people find you if they want to, follow you on Instagram? If they want to find your website, where can they go?
Yeah. So Facebook, and if you look up Colton Woods Horsemanship or Colton Woods Horseman on just about any of the platforms, whether it's TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube as well, you're going to find us there. We're putting out a bunch of long form YouTube horse training content, business development content. Just had one go up this afternoon, new video went up. And so all across social media, coltonshorsemanship.com. We've got multiple free things on there. You guys, like, whether it's business development or horsemanship development, there's some free downloads, free ebooks. Like, if you're like, hey, I want to get a taste, like a little bit more tangible information you can put your hands on, you're welcome to get those off the website as well. And then horsebusinessmanager.com if you're interested in the software.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to put those in the show notes too. So much, Colton. I had like a million other questions for you, I feel like, but I could talk to you for 3 hours. So I will stop us there. But I really appreciate you taking the time. And this was a great conversation, and congratulations on everything that you've accomplished so far. And congratulations to you and your wife too for the little one on the way. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you for being
having
here.
me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
You bet.